So today I am out here at Bear Mountain State Park, a little training shakedown. It is a positively balmy 61 degrees today. So I am out here in my full PCT regalia. Got the short sleeve shirt, got the shorts on. It's a nice day for some hiking. The only thing I'm missing is I'm not wearing my sun hat because it is still very low sun exposure here. And to be frank, it would look stupid. So we're gonna go ahead, head up the mountain. This is gonna be a fun one. We got a little section of the AT coming up at the end. I think I'll make both sides of the trail section here that crosses the Hudson to appear in my training hikes. So should be a pretty good hike. So here's the part, because we're on the East Coast, where this thing starts to go straight up the mountain. Oh man, I love and hate hiking in New York. So it's currently melt season here in New York. This is actually my first time ever hiking this, where all the streams are running. You know, usually when I'm out here, they are bone dry by the time I get out here. So it's kind of interesting. It's also kind of fun because the reason I came here today is because if you've hiked the AT before, you've probably been here from, May to August, give or take. And it is so busy. It's like coming to Disney World here at that time, just because there's a lot of ways to get here. You can get here on public transit from the city. So it makes it a very popular spot, which is great. It's awesome for people to come out here and experience nature. But the double-edged sword of that is that it makes trying to hike up the mountain a line at Disney World. So you're just, going one by one up this trail, waiting for the next person. And it just takes, what's ordinarily a 3-hour hike. It makes it, I think it took me 6 hours to do it one time, which was the extreme end, but still. It's not something you want to come out here and experience unless you have to. So part of why I take this particular route up is because I find it a little bit more challenging than just doing the AT up. The AT here is very well designed. I think, honestly, it's one of the better designed parts of the entire Appalachian Trail. But it's also not a very challenging route up, at least in my opinion. So I take this one to challenge myself a bit more when I'm out here, because that's why I enjoy hiking, particularly right now where I'm training. I want something that's making me, breathe a little harder, get the heart pumping. But the sort of side effect of that is that if you do come here in spring and early summer, like I was saying, a lot of people take this trail expecting a beginner route up. And when you get out here, it's intermediate at best. I mean, there's some parts that I would call a straight up advanced trail. So I've stopped for a little bit of a break for kind of two main reasons. The first, which I think is the kind of annoying one, is that I love my pack. I have the Hyperlight Wind Rider pack, which is fantastic. It's been absolutely an amazing piece of gear for me. My one complaint is that it is almost impossible for me to get to my water bottles while they're sitting in it. And I've ordered a little shoulder holder for a smaller one that I'm going to use while I'm out on the PCT. But unfortunately, the shipping got delayed. It was supposed to get here today. I was going to test it out. But the shipping was delayed. So now I have to wait until later today. Or it was supposed to get here yesterday. It's coming later today. So I'm going to have to wait for my next training hike to test it out. So the other reason is that, for whatever reason, this particular part of Bear Mountain, and I'm not sure why, ends up having this very scraggly kind of grasslands look to it, which I always find really interesting when I get up into areas like this, because at one point in time, this is what most of the forest around here, the East Coast, east of the Appalachians, looked. And for a variety of reasons, between different forestry techniques utilized by Native Americans and Americans when we got here, to the loss of old growth forests, to the particular kinds of trees that grow up now, particularly invasive ones native to Europe. Most of the East Coast woodland doesn't look like this anymore. It's really dense, thick, wooded areas with a lot of undergrowth. So I always find it interesting. I like to stop and take a minute to stop in these areas when I do find them. And I'm not sure that this is some ancient remnant. I don't think so. It just happens to look kind of similar to what it might have looked like, 800 years ago in this spot, which, as a historian, particularly one who has done a lot of environmental history, I always find that fascinating. So I always forget about it. It always gets me when I do this trail. This trail has one of the most devious false summits you will ever see. You do, like I said, about a half a mile of scrambling there to get up to the saddle, false summit, whatever you want to call it. And you get up to the top and you look around and you see you're up higher than most of the other mountains around here. You know the relative height of this one. I must almost be there. And you get over it and you get over here and you remember you have another 250 feet of more straight up and stairs you have to do before you get to the top. Oh man, it gets me every time too. I always forget about it. So we made it to the top, nice and flat and down from here. But besides that, being up here means we are on the AT. It's always good to be back home for a little bit. Now, while some might say it is sad to see vending machines placed on top of a mountain, I say you can never look a gift horse in the eye. And of course, we have the famous tower up here. I don't think I've ever actually been inside it. I know some people go up it, but I've just never quite felt the need when, the view is already pretty unobscured up here. Got a nice seat with a view, and it's barely showing up on camera, but if you see in the background right over there, you'll see some very faint bumps on the horizon. That is a very clear view of New York City for me. Yeah, it's one of my favorite views of the city, but it never comes out on camera, unfortunately. So it's always fun for me to come up here because this is more or less the origin point of me as a thru hiker. When I was very young, I came up here on a hike with the Cub Scouts and my dad, and everyone who was in the troop at the time, but me and my dad were up here. We were sitting close to this spot. I saw a bunch of very smelly, sweaty people, and I asked my dad, well, what the hell are they doing up here? In less crass language, because I was 6. But my dad explained to me that they were AT thru hikers, and explained to me what the AT is. And, at the time, because we did Thanksgiving down in Georgia, and we spent summer up in Maine, the only thought that went through my head was, man, I can walk from my summer vacation to Thanksgiving? That's great, let's do it. And I didn't know how prescient that would become at the time. So one of my favorite reasons to come out to this particular section of the AT is that this is the oldest section of the AT specifically. I should go over what that means a little bit. So there are older sections of the AT that were part of pre-existing trails. Trails that were already in the area that the AT linked into its overall run. These include like the entire Long Trail section of the AT up there in Vermont, for example. But this part coming down Bear Mountain, or going up depending on your direction, is actually the oldest bit of trail created to specifically be a part of the AT. And I'd have to go back over the history. There's some signs down at the bottom that I'm sure will remind me, but basically in the early days of the trail, back before even the Appalachian Trail Conference got together, which this being 2025 is the 100th year of the Appalachian Trail Conference. These days is called the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Back in those days, the trail clubs were mostly, you know, doing their own thing and adding on kind of a little bit haphazardly at the start. And so the New York Trail Club, I forget the specific name, was the first to get out there. Super excited by the article by Benton Mackay that laid out the AT. And they built, not this specifically, I'm sure the specific trail has been modified extensively since those days, but this stretch down here has the honor of being the first trail that was built specifically as the Appalachian Trail. So it's kind of an exciting time off the trail right now because I'm in my final set of preparations. You know, I'm just about 3 weeks out from my start date. This is my last week of work here. I've got a fun road trip planned before I go. I'm getting the last bits of gear in place. I'm gonna have a gear list posted sometime soon. Waiting for a few more things to come in just so I can show the full spread when I have that opportunity. But overall, we're in the home stretch here, and it's, you know, I think part of it is because this is ultimately a second through hike that I'm going on. So it's not quite as, I don't know, nerve-wracking as the last time was, but it still feels a little out there to me that it's actually coming together. So I'm not sure if I've pointed it out yet, but that down there is the Bear Hudson Bridge, where the Appalachian Trail crosses the Hudson River. One of those landmark spots. It's also the lowest point on the Appalachian Trail. I'm trying to learn more about the PCT in general so I can make those kind of insightful observations, you know, for when I'm making videos out there. I've also been watching these videos on YouTube by a guy named Ed Pratt. If you want to check him out, where he's putting up videos of when he did the Thames River from its source to the sea. And I was thinking about that, and I'd love to try and do that one day with the Hudson. Though I would expect it'd be a fair bit more complicated due to the difference in, you know, land rights and where the Hudson starts and how much sooner it becomes tidal and that sort of thing compared to that. But, you know, maybe one day. You know, I'm almost tempted. Almost. And I remember that, you know, Connecticut and Vermont are in the way. So I was just reading the handy information signs. If you're through hiking the AT, make sure you stop and read through some of that stuff when you're here. It's got a lot of interesting tidbits and whatnot, especially when it comes to trail design and making trails. But I was right when I said before that this was created before the ATC was, that particular section of trail. It was built, in fact, in 1923. So it's over 100 years old at this point. But yeah, back at the bottom, about to pack up and head home. And I think the next time I will be seeing you is when I make a gear list video, once those last bits and bobs of gear come in over the next few weeks. See you then.